Our Christmas celebrations are at the opposite end of the year. Midwinter is our Christmas celebration. So June the 21st is the shortest day of the year for us, which is the longest day in the Northern Hemisphere. And it's become a special tradition. So we basically have a kind of Christmas celebration at Midwinters, and we have a week off. Crazy things happen. People do Winter Olympics or run down the length of Fuchs, which is the field guides building, with a bungee tied around their waist and see how far they can get. We try stacking boxes in the hangar and see how high we can get.
We had the Skidoo time trials, which got a little bit competitive and was very good. So we had a time trial course consisting of 2 laps on the same Skidoo, and it was just an out and out battle for the fastest time, which was a great laugh.
And we watch The Thing, the old original Thing, and we watch South of Sanity, which was a film that was made here on station by a winterer a few years ago. And it's good to do your night round week before you watch South of Sanity.
So Midwinter's Day is, I didn't realise how much of a big celebration it is, but it thoroughly undersold to me. This is the darkest day of the year where you barely get any sunlight. This is where, after this day, you start getting a bit more light, albeit a little bit of light. You wake up to the station leader coming and bringing you either tea or coffee, which is always a nice pleasant surprise. You then go over to MBH, have morning breakfast, which is usually cooked up, quite lovely, usually an English breakfast with croissants and whatnot. Then you go back to your rooms, get dressed up into either your suits, your dresses, or any formal attire that you have, and take your presents over. You then leave them in the bar area on the pool table for everyone to kind of peruse around, see the wrapping, see if their name's on anything, see what could have been made for them. Then you'd all congregate at a certain time there, and someone will start it off and present presents to each other.
It's a tradition that everyone makes a winter present for someone else, like a secret Santa thing. Lots of people want to come and use wood in the chippy shed. We've got a nice selection of hardwoods that people come and use, and they all confide in me like I'm a priest or something and tell me the secret of what they're making. but I can't tell anyone else. So this year, out of 23 of us, I had a hand in at least 16 of the gifts, in like preparing the wood for them and doing various bits and bobs, because some of the big tools people aren't allowed to use for safety reasons, so I have to do the big machining and then hand the rest over to them.
I'd probably say if it had metal on it, it either came through here or started in here and then left here. There were some real challenges with the winter gifts and stuff like that. Like an in particular person, Katie, she made a ring out, and it started off just in the air. What are we going to do? And we're thinking, well, we haven't really got the metal to make it from scratch. Well, we have, but it's a lot of work. So we ended up getting a nut and then just turning it into a ring and cutting grooves into it, and just thinking, how can we modify something simple and make it into something really cool? And we did achieve something quite cool in the end there with this ring, and it turned out pretty well.
John, I'm so proud of you for not making it massive. Really proud, because I was really genuinely worried about not being able to take it home.
I sit every day in the office. So I can.
Wow! Wow, look at that. Guys, look at that. That's awesome.
Oh, nice.
That's really good, John. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, turn the lights on.
You know what that means, don't you?
Oh shit, I've got to dive.
Yeah.
Oh, look. I'm going to take time to go through that. That's amazing. Yeah, thanks.
Right. All you've got to do now is hope I don't collapse. Thank you very much, Luke. Whoa! What is that? Well, yeah, I know. Whoa!
That is insane. Wow, man.
That's really good.
After that, usually just spend an hour or two just looking over at each other's, taking photos, having a bit of time to yourself. Then it's having your dinner, which was a 3 or 4 course meal. I can't quite remember, there was just too much of it. And then just before putting, everyone goes over to the tower, which is in OBH, and listens to the Midwinter broadcast from the BBC. So you'll be all sat up there quite cosy and snug, listening to the radio. And I didn't realise that you have your family give you a message. So we're all told that you might have 1 or 2 messages come through, but it's quite nice to hear folks back home saying certain things to you, wishing you well, telling you how life at home is, and telling you that they miss you.
Hi Luke, it's Erin. Hello. I just want to say how much we miss you, and we can't wait to see you. Love you loads. We miss you, Pete. Don't let us count the ways. Our fridges may be fuller and our servings slimmer, without a boy to browse the shelves and gaze a wistful sides. And any thoughts of dinner? Cześć kochana, ja cię też pozdrawiam serdecznie. No, co tam u ciebie słychać? Zimę masz?
Życzymy Tobie przyjemnego spędzenia czasu dalszego.
I wracaj szybko do nas. No, jak najszybciej, ale to i tak będzie w przyszłym roku. A kochany, kochany Tasku, wszystkiego najlepszego. Tęsknię za Tobą. Czekam na twój powrót. Wszystkiego najlepszego. A kochanie, jeszcze raz tak.
Les chandeliers parlent à JB, je répète. Les chandeliers parlent à JB.
Les enfants, il n'y en a que 30 secondes. Je répète, 30 secondes. Hi Auntie, this is your mom and Dad. We're wishing you a very happy adventure. Your dad has made it to Midwinter this time. Here of knives and cable ties.
Seriously, son, we're very proud of you and cannot wait to see you early next year.
We miss you, Lucy, Mom, you're so cuddly.
We haven't lost this yet.
I've lost work to do. La 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 la.
We also get to pick songs that we pick months in advance as a vote, and the BBC will play them for us, which is quite nice. Usually it's either darkness or sunshine themed.
Now let's keep the voting going with a very special guest. Oh,
That's the blackbird in Midsummer in Two Gardens.
That's David.
For you in the middle of your winter. The good weather is going to come again, and with it comes a ship, I'm happy to say, carries my name. and it'll be coming to you in the Antarctic in the next year. And with it comes greetings from all of us for whom you are working so hard. I wish you all the best from everybody in this country. Happy Midwinter.
Sir David Attenborough, accompanied by Blackbird.
And it just was kind of emotional for some people, happiness, longing to be at home, but still loving being here.
Then after that, it's back to MBH, have our pudding, and usually you receive a present from home that you're not told about. I don't know if this is going to get aired for people to know about, but you get a small shoebox present from home with some little luxuries and bits and pieces like that, which kind of makes you a bit more, not homesick, but missing of home. And then from there, you just enjoy the night with everyone, socialise and have a nice time, see what else everyone else has got and enjoy the festivities.
Midwinter is Antarctic Christmas because it is a turning point. It is an inflection point. It is because things can get depressing. It's dark. You can't go out. There's such bad weather. I'm talking 60, 65 knots, blowing snow, days on end. You're stuck inside. But you get to midwinter and it's like, well, this is an inflection point, and everyone is celebrating. And so we get packages from home as a bit of a morale boost. And so you suddenly see photos that for example, for me, my sister sent me a whole package full of photos from my photo albums as kids, as adults, and it was just amazing. It was memories that I've forgotten. Your world down here is black and white. It's snow and rock, that's it. You kind of forget about home, forget about most things, but this was like an injection of colour. Looking at grass, looking at us climbing trees. Then after that, you have a serious sense of companionship. Like you realise what you're missing. You're missing home, you're missing family. You look around, but these people are my family. So that week is then just everyone kind of embracing that. For us, especially before midwinter, it was kind of like you were the mechanic and I'm an electronics engineer. Never really crossed paths, but after that, it was like we're a family unit, and that's why it's so important.
We have 3 really big events during the wintertime at Rotherer. The first one is midwinters, when we all kind of gather to celebrate the middle part of winter. But either side of that, I think just as important, in fact, probably more important, is that final sunset and that final sunrise. Now, we're surrounded by mountains here, which give us amazing scenery, but it doesn't mean we lose the sun around about the end of May, and we don't see it again until about the end of July. So that's like a 2-month period where we get amazing twilights. It's fantastic pinks and purples and blues, but we just don't see the sun above the horizon. So at sundown, the last sunset, what happens is the oldest member of station normally takes that flag down. The flag's been up for about 10 months, so it's battered by winds, it's fraying at the edges. It's been really enjoying the Antarctic summer. But that's the last time we see the sun. We take it down, we do a bit of a sing, and we just enjoy the fact that that's night. That's what we see, and that's the joy about being a winterer in Antarctica, is that that's a really special event. And then 2 months after that, the youngest person on the station raises a brand new, crisp, clean flag up. Again, we have a song, we sing, and we look forward to what's happening the second half of winter and then into the summer as well.
Yeah, I thought Robbie playing his guitar at the raising of the flag ceremony, I thought that was quite a beautiful, I'm not sure if it's just a live music thing where it just kind of hits you. It's sort of that kind of, I don't know, it's just when people are creative or they do something like that, it's quite special really.
But just seeing that sun again, and like the first time you see your shadow after 2 months of not having one, it's fantastic. And you see people at lunchtime just getting out their chairs and just staring out the window as this ball of light comes back above the mountains. It's quite fantastic to see.
In my free time, I try and do a lot of outdoor exercise. So I go skiing, snowboarding, Nordic skiing, walking, hiking, climbing. If I'm able to, I get away from the station where we have a caboose that I go and stay in. You can't see the station, you get a beautiful view of the bay and the mainland peninsula on the other side. And it's a lovely way of detracting yourself from work and life down here.
In the winter, it's quite weird because in the summer you could just finish work and it'd be light, so I'd spend loads of my time snowboarding. But in the winter, change to more indoor-based activities. So I like playing badminton, I like running, so when the runway was compacted with snow, it was quite nice to run outside with a head torch in the dark. Now I run on the treadmill, which is less good, but it's quite cool. Do a little painting, play music, so play the piano, and we've got a group and we jam together sometimes, so that's quite a nice cohesive thing to do. Learned how to knit here, which was fun. And cooking is probably my favourite thing to do here. It's just so satisfying having all these ingredients and being able to have amazing facilities. Like at home, I'd be whisking by hand, and now I've got like these enormous whisks and bread dough hooks, and using all this machinery and like making food is super cool.
One of my probably favourite hobbies now is kite skiing, something that I've picked up whilst being down in Antarctica. I did a very small amount of kite surfing in the UK, which gave me some kite control, so I thought I'd bring some kites down here. And yeah, it's turned into one of my favourite hobbies, as skiing was one of my favourite hobbies anyway. To combine it with being propelled by a huge kite in the air is brilliant, because you can control exactly where you want to go. You don't have to worry about ups or downs, and yeah, it's just the coolest hobby ever.
I get out climbing as much as I can, as much as they'll let me, and the green room for music. Without playing music in the green room and getting out climbing, I possibly wouldn't survive the 18 months. But with them, it makes it a pleasure, yeah.
When I have free time, I'm making vlogs. I make movies, not very good ones, but I'm learning. There's a Polish man down here who's teaching me. There's a green room. So the green room is a music room, which I go to quite a lot. We can play. We have a little band down here, which is good fun. Genuinely trying to learn things, because you don't really get opportunities to learn things back home, but here you definitely do, because you've got so many different resources at your fingertips. The chippy shed, which is a carpenter's workshop, I didn't have access to the tools back home, so.
It's very strange. When I first came to Antarctica, I thought I'd be so busy or so bored that I'd have to find lots of fun things to do. I thought I was going to learn French, I thought I was going to learn Spanish. I've got a jumper to knit with me this year, I've got jigsaws and Lego. And I don't know what I do with my time, because I don't do any of those things, but I know I had a great time. I mean, it's great just hanging out in the dining room after dinner and just talking with people, heading up to the lounge upstairs. I have managed to knit at least one hat since I've been here, so that's a good start, I think. Watched so many DVDs. I've read a few books as well, but it's just amazing how your time passes so quickly, and before you know it, it's almost summer already.
Okay, here's a rundown of my craft projects. I have made 2 chalk bags for climbing, a coat rack, 2 pillows made out of rope, which I could demonstrate, 5 knives, I'm making a clock. What else have I made? Oh yeah, and I've crocheted 4 hats. No, actually, all joking aside, I really enjoyed having free time. I get to be part of the band, I get to learn new skills, I get to engage with people who I wouldn't normally spend time with, I get to go learn about metalworking skills, and I get to set fire to myself with an angle grinder, which I did last week. The opportunities to do stuff are here if you look for them. And this is a place where if you want your free time to be full, you can fill it.
I like mending things and making things quite a lot. The other night I was just gluing my gloves because they'd fallen to bits, mending my jacket because the zip had broken.
In my free time, I do like snowboarding. I like to get up the hill and have a bit of a skid down the hill on the snowboard there. That's good fun. But if I'm completely honest, a lot of the time, if I'm on a day off and I'm bored, I'll probably come into the workshop and maybe do a bit of welding, practice a skill, because there's no better time to learn than there is down here, because we have so much equipment. Stuff that I would never get to use at home, I can use down here very freely.
Yeah, in a free time, which I get 2 days off, so if the weather's good, we get to go skiing. Lots of fun going out for days out skiing. Get to go out on the ribs, get to go out and watch the divers dive, which is really incredible. And then just the general hanging out at the station, learning to play drums in a band, which is something I've never done before. So yeah, lots of different things.
The local ski resort and range or mountain range is Val's, where you go across the traverse and you've got a nice secluded area where we have a caboose up there, and you can kind of get off base, which is quite nice. You can have a cup of tea with the stove, you can camp overnight. all the facilities, and it's just a nice little quiet bit.
Yeah, so in my free time down here, you can do quite a lot of things depending on the weather. If it's good weather, you can go outside, you can snowboard, you can go for a sightsee, you can go for a walk, or you can just sit outside on the balcony. If the weather's bad, or obviously it's nighttime, it's dark, you can watch a film, you can play pool, you can have a drink, you can sit in the bar. There's plenty of stuff to do.
Also go to the local climbing wall, which is indoors in Fuchs. It's always interesting when they put new routes up, or you go with a friend and try and challenge each other to a bit more. Also just play some sports. We've got ping pong table in one of the rooms. So we've got badminton court set up in the hangar and a football court as well. So usually you can find team sports or go on and do something on your own like that.
One of the interesting things about being in Antarctica is so many things happen, and you forget about a lot of them until we get to like the end of winter, and then you're like, oh yeah, you mentioned something and something comes through. One of my standout memories is back in my first winter, back in 2016, we took part in helping a medevac from the South Pole, and that's a pretty big operation if you think about middle of winter and the temperatures at the South Pole, and the fact it's dark as well. And these pilots came all the way down from Canada. They flew down through the States, through South America, and finally got to here at Rothera. And in the middle of winter, we cleaned the runway, we'd got all together. It was a huge effort by everyone on the station. Everyone on the station was helping towards this. Everyone had a job. You know, we had people out signaling planes, so we, rebuilt some rooms and all sorts of things. But it reminded me of such a community, not just on station, but also everyone back home who put all that together, organised and all of that stuff, and amongst the stations in Antarctica as well. So this was a medevac across at a different station. That was quite humbling to be part of something so big, and even remote, you feel kind of a big part of that. So that's a big memory of mine.
There's been too many. Okay, one of them that was really good was on the winds trip where we were probing with a probe to look for an area where a crevasse might be. So we're going along looking for some cracks, and then we found different areas where the opening of a crevasse was, and then I dug down with the help of field guide and with two of the field guides, and then eventually we reached the crevasse, and it was like one spade into the snow, and then suddenly this whole enormous 25-meter crack just opened beneath us. But it's so weird because you just got this massive layer of snow on top, and then suddenly bam, an enormous crack, which is super cool. And it was just great to actually descend into this narrow opening. It's kind of like what I'd seen on TV as a kid.
Going down a crevasse was a huge highlight. It's just something very crazy about abseiling down into a slot into the ground, not knowing what's going to be at the bottom, and then learning to ice climb back out of it. Ice climbing is something that always looks so cool and turns out it's really difficult, but huge amount of fun.
It's always quite funny for us field guides because we spend our lives trying to stay away from crevasses and not end up in them. And then you get people in base who are always really keen to go out and see one, obviously in a controlled manner when it's planned.
I think one of my most memorable moments might have been a few days before the sun came back from 24 hours of no sunlight. I went out to climb on the Storks Mountains, and me and two others were skinning up the mountain and saw the sun, and there was a lot of howling and shouting and excitement and a little bit of sunbathing with just pure happiness to see the sun again, despite the fact that we didn't think we had missed it. As soon as we saw it, we just couldn't take the smiles off our faces.
It's the sun. It's the sun, and it's warm, and it's bright, and it makes everything just golden, and it's back. And it's great. 3,100 something hours by Matthew's calculation. The answer is a long fucking time. And, but the good news is now it's back, which is lovely. Yeah. There it is. Star of the show, literally. That was terrible. The nights in the tent felt surreal and special, and I don't think I will feel that way again for a really long time. You feel like an explorer, and it's total farce because you're car camping, but you feel like you're really extreme, and that's quite cool, especially when the whole thing is shaking and you're like, very cozy.
This winter, getting on winter trips up into the Trident area and onto the other side of Adelaide Islands, and just seeing sort of a different side of the islands, a bit more barren, and seeing the Chilean base as well. It was just really cool to see, and there's something that people back in the real world couldn't pay enough money to do.
Most memorable moment for me so far, I think there's been quite a lot really. One of them was a recreational trip. This is because I made a complete tit of myself. We were taking a few band people and a few of the winter staff out towards the Sheldon Glacier, and we were sat around off the glacier, and I was there was a band geologist on the boat, and we were kind of riffing about the geology and the glaciology, and I was saying how for me this was a different type of glaciology because the ice is quite stuck to the bedrock. Where I come from, where I did my glaciology research, you have a lot of water underneath the ice, so everything's moving quite quickly, and glaciers carve all the time. Winter, summer, they're always carving. Sometimes they carve a lot quicker because they start surging. Carving is when the front breaks off and falls in the water. And I was saying, I hadn't really seen a carving event, and everything was really slow and stuck to the ground, and nothing really happened, and all this sort of thing. And then that second, a massive lump of ice fell off the front of the glacier, and there was quite a big wave came from the ice. So there was a good, near the front, it was a good 2 meters wave. So we felt the effect of that.
Thursday morning, about 10:30, just as twilight began, we had clear skies, and the view of Ryder Bay with Leotard in the background was one of the most spectacular views I've ever witnessed, and I couldn't keep my eyes off it. I couldn't go and get my camera, and a camera wouldn't have done it justice, and that's a memory I'm going to live with forever. It was so beautiful, blues and greys, and the stark contrast between the black rock and the white of the snow and the glaciers. That was a really special moment.
It was a whole day. It was just one of these days that's just magical. You look back and did that really happen? We went to a place called Stork Bowl, and this was the last time we were going to see the sun. So we climbed to the top of this mountain, but we lost the sun at Rothera. So we chased it up this mountain, and we saw the sunset, and it was beautiful. And then there's this ridge on the back of it, and we went snowboarding, and the sun was setting. And if you did a 360, the colors of the sky went from yellow all the way around to purple. Like every color, like continuously going around in like a massive color wheel. It was incredible. And then you had sea ice forming, and you had a mountain in the distance that looked all moody, and we were snowboarding down this ridge and climbing up, and it was incredible. And I remember just going back the next day thinking, did that day just happen? It was one of the most surreal days ever.
So this winter has been dominated by windy and warm conditions, and those are not the conditions we want for sea ice. For sea ice, we want really nice cold conditions. Now, the sea temperatures at the moment are around about minus 1.8 degrees Celsius, so it's cold enough. But if you think about the winds, they start to mix that slightly warmer air in. So it starts to mix things up, and with a movement, it won't form. So we're looking for dry, calm, still conditions and cold. So the last few weeks, minus 20 degrees Celsius, nice and stable. And as soon as we get that stable conditions, that's when we start to find the sea ice forming. So hopefully we'll find a bit more of that. But while we keep these windy conditions, it makes it really hard for the sea ice to form and stay stable.
So the sea ice is something pretty dangerous, but I'd say the way we are doing it here feels really safe. It's like walking on concrete, basically.
As field guides, we keep a sea ice diary. So pretty much every day now, for the last 4 months or so, we've kept a diary, which has included photos, sort of records of the weather, and observations of the sea ice around the Rothera area. And then minimum requirements are 2 weeks of a diary to prove that the ice has been forming consistently over that time. And then at that point, if we get permission from Cambridge, from headquarters, a couple of the field guides will probably then go onto the ice with a little hand drill through it in various locations and measure the depth of the sea ice. And if it's over 20 centimetres, then we're good to go on skis. And you need 25 for foot and 30 if you want to take a skidoo on the ice.
And we map the sea ice around station or where we want to go, and then we know exactly where it's safe or not. Other than that, we stick to looking at the weather a lot. Any wind that is a bit too high or any temperature that rise a bit too much, then we have to test everything all over again.
So when we go out on the sea ice, we have a load of protocol and procedures to go out there. So it has to be a certain type of weather, wind and temperatures to be able to do that, and also the thickness of the ice.
But as well as that, you need to be having specific kit as well. So these are webbing belts, some throw lines, some snow stakes that we need for that as well. And then also, this is one of the key bits of equipment. It seems a bit antiquated, but you use this to actually measure the thickness of the ice. So you drop this through the ice. So pretend that's the ice. You let this hang down, and then when you pull it back up, that then gets stuck on the underneath the hole of the ice, and then you can then read off where the ice is. Seems really archaic and a bit old school, but it works amazingly well considering the other options there are there as well.
Primarily, the reason we do it at the moment is for the scientists down in the Bonner, so they can get out onto the sea ice. They can then cut their holes in it, and they can continue their diving throughout the winter. And also their CTDC sampling, and they can continue to do that if we get out on the sea ice. It hasn't been a great year so far, but hopefully soon we'll get them out there and get them diving. And then the other side of it as well is just for recreation. It's a really nice way for people to get off base, doing something a little bit different. And yeah, you don't have to go very far. And then you sort of turn around and look back at base, and you're seeing it from a totally different angle. Some people might have been out on the boat in the summer and seen it from that angle from the boat, and now suddenly you're essentially walking on the sea. So it's pretty cool.
Today, so that bit's done, 10 knots greater than in any direction, then we can't go out in. So at the moment we're kind of at the top end, about 5-6 knots, which is fine. So wind below 10 knots in any direction, temperatures below -5, needs to be a forecast that's fairly settled as well, and you also need to be on a route that's known. Brilliant. So before you go, obviously the equipment's down in Fuchs, we'll talk about that in a sec. You need to have at least 2 people, ideally 3 people, so if something did go wrong you've got a friend. You need to take 2 radios with you, and you also then need to sign out to the boating board, and every 30 minutes we need to radio in to comms. So if you go out the weekend, really important just to check the comms person is ready for every half hour. So just as a heads up, the midweek obviously is a bit easier because there is a dedicated comms person. The kit we need to sort out then, so we need to at least a spare clothing bag per pair. So I've got 2 spare clothing bags for us because we're going to go a bit further away than the shore. Group shelter, first aid, mapping bag, GPS with our route that we've got on. So head torch, some snacks, a flask. We don't need flares anymore. The escape ramp, so there's a Mackay point because we're heading out to the north. There's also, hopefully today we might get an idea of it, but there's another point somewhere around here.
Yeah.
But basically what we're looking for when we're heading out north, if something did go wrong, the wind picked up, or there started to be a breakout, we want to be heading towards a point that we can see is land, so if it's rock basically. If we get to that point, then we obviously want to stay put, radio our location, and then the SAR team will then come and egress us from the other side. So we don't want to try and escape up the glaciated terrain, because then that obviously means we need rope and crampons and all that sort of stuff as well. Does that make sense so far? We always only use these ones that are named CI, so SI. These ones obviously fit Baffins, and then these 2 here take mountaineering boots. There's the one. So most of the time we'll just wear these ones, and they are roughly guesstimate about the size. So we can do the port. This is all the sea ice stuff in here, so don't use anything else on the sea ice. And I can't emphasize that enough, don't use anything else, because this stuff has been covered in salt water, so it's been effectively written off compared to the other stuff, which is just still in good nick. So from this stuff, what you'll need is a harness, we'll talk through that down there. Yeah, so from here you'll need a harness, some metalwork, throw line, and I'll show you that down there. Oh, and there'll be also obviously emergency clothing bags in here as well, and the other stuff you need. So basically this is the one-stop shop. Do you want to head out? So we head back out. Cool, shall we get suited and booted? If that sounds good. Any question as on any of that at all? Cool, you grab your skis and then sorted, that'll be good, and then we'll talk through all this stuff. So everyone should hopefully have 2 water hogs. or on them. Ideally on 2 different carabiners to make it easy to get off your harness. You have a throw bag, at least 2 throw bags, ideally 1 per person. So depending on the size of the group, that will dictate that. An ice pad is quite useful as well, but not essential. Such, and then that's your lot. And then just put it on like a normal climbing waist belt. The reason we use one of these, if you do fall in, you can then clip the throw bag onto your waist belt, and then that helps the guys pull you out as well as you climb out. Oh yeah. Which of your skis can typically get set in there? Just before the set. So everybody's got a spare warm clothes. Well, they've got 2 spare bags, some gloves. Feel warm enough now. Yeah. Oh, maybe bigger set. Okay. This is the one place that your opinion counts more than anything. If for some reason Matt's mojo suddenly goes, I don't like stepping across that crack, then that could be the reason why I'll just go back. Because once you commit to this next piece of ice and it breaks off, there isn't us going back. Okay, so it's really important that every person has their own opinion of what they think is going on. Okay, so don't just presume that what his decision is you're happy with it. Okay. I'd say this is a very easy activity to fall into a heuristic trap, and you'll end up getting caught out. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah? Cool. Yeah. Cool. Let's keep heading out. So you can see, this is a good example. You see how the ice around this third, if you lick your sunnies off, see how it's really sort of pale in colour? Yeah. Compared to all this older stuff, which is like nice and dark and a deep dark colour. That's the younger ice as such, basically. So if we're going out and testing ice, or we're going out on a travel ourselves, that's the sort of ice pattern you want to avoid, because there's going to be slightly thinner patches than the rest of the dark coloured ice. Does that make sense? Cool. Perfect. Bristol. Sweet, let's keep heading on then.
It'd be quite interesting to like drill here and then go as far as you dared and drill and see the difference. Yeah, no, I'm not saying do. I'm saying it'd be interesting to see how quickly the ice drops off in thickness.
Yeah. I think it'll still be reasonably thick around the berg. It's not necessarily the thickness, it's the issue, it's the stability of the ice. That makes sense, Joe? Are we coming to a key point of our process of heading out on the ice right now?
Has it been half an hour yet?
Well, now I'm thinking of where we're about to go to.
We're going to a new bay, essentially. So it's going to be different ice.
We've gone from like a cove, so you imagine all the way across, this is North Cove. That is open water out the end of the runway. So, are we still happy the weather's doing what it's doing? So it's meant to be calm and stable. There is a bit more cloud than what it said in the forecast. So the weather's meant to be coming a bit earlier, so we just want to keep that in mind as well. So it's about keeping those thoughts in your head all the time. And I know you might think I'm being really pedantic, but if I'm not pedantic now, when you go out by yourself, then these small things are the things you might miss, and they make a big difference because I'm not going to be there. So we're happy with the weather, we're happy that we're still good ice, so let's keep moving along. Whoa, the lead is open. That is a good find. That is what we want. Well, it's not what we want, but
that one right there.
There we go. Yeah, look.
Hey, drove to you.
Yeah, that's just the lead. There you go.
So you can tell you got the same there? Yeah. Oh dear. So, this really, I don't know, this does a good job of emphasising the real keenness of, as soon as you get something, a feature, even as small as it might be, check it properly. Because I thought that was pretty solid, but obviously I did a shit job and you did a better job with the one. So, like I was saying, all of us have got a part of making a decision to cross it. It's not just the first person that gets to it as well. Sick. We'll go that way, hand the back to this berg, and we'll then get to them.
So we have had some very nice stable spells of -20 with very little wind, which has allowed the sea ice to develop. But then we also get like very strong winds, which kind of create a breakup and it just disappears within a day or two. So it's quite a strange medium, especially in this kind of topography. It's not like in a big fjord in the Arctic where it's just going to be there and stay there for months on end. It seems to love just disappearing. So yeah, quite strange. But we got the divers out on the ice last Friday, and that was really nice. Really nice to see them doing their thing and getting that finally done.
Once we get all the permissions to go out onto the sea ice, we'll then take a chainsaw and a qualified person will cut 2 dive holes per site.
You get Mark's drill? No?
That would be too big.
The first hole will be our main access point, and the second hole is a secondary access point just in case there's a problem. For example, if the divers are diving through the ice and a orca or a leopard seal popped up through the hole they were supposed to be getting out of, there is a secondary site that they can leave from. They are always tethered when they're under the ice via a rope, a communication rope, which means I can hear them constantly and they can hear me. And also the secondary hole is not further away than the length of the line that they're using.
I think it's a small yeah, it's really loose.
You okay, Ryan?
Good, mate, yeah.
All right. Yeah. You want it there? You want to throw it back?
Gas.
Oh.
Whoa.
That was
So your max depth will be there, your current depth's there. Yeah. And then that, see where the degrees is there? Yeah. That'll usually be your dive time. Okay. Yeah, but don't worry, we'll be in contact. Yeah. Yeah, so we ask your max depth.
Yeah. Do not go below 1.8 metres. Okay, we've already got a pressure penalty in those. Yeah. Okay. So
what are we expecting here?
15 here. Yeah, so just don't go below 1.8 metres. Okay.
Go down to the rip rack, look for the other hole.
Yeah.
Pick up some shit.
Yeah, and do that. So 16 sterochinus. No, it's not the end of the world if we don't get enough of the animals.
Has anyone got that carrot?
Yeah. No, you've already had one of mine. Yeah. Okay. What we're going to do, we're going to sit you on the side here, pretty masked on. Okay. You can put your fins on when you're in the water. Happy with that?
Happy.
Let's do this. Yeah.
final.
Back on main.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Pressure 190. Have you given my pressures?
Okay, cool. Right, we'll go feeling. Okay, right, you happy?
Yeah.
You happy?
Okay, yes.
Cool, right.
Turn anti-clockwise, Pete. Okay, lid checked. Good.
Right, Pete. Move to the back.
Good. Leave start first.
To be honest, it's actually not much different. Once you leave the surface, it's like any other dive. But yeah, it's a very cool experience to do. It's one I've not done before, and it's probably something I won't do back in the real world. So yeah, it's a good one to have in the CV.
I am the mobile plant mechanic here at Rothera.
I'm the plant operator at Rothera Research Station.
So my job involves a lot of preventative maintenance, mainly preventative maintenance, where we will service the vehicles and keep an eye on the vehicles to make sure they're all operating fine. We have a big fleet of Skidoos that we have to look after, and being mobile, we spend a lot of time repairing them and keeping them up to absolute top condition. Got a lot of heavy plant as well, so we've got a bulldozer, some loading shovels and stuff, and we tend to use them more in the summertime. But when we're working on them, it's more in the summer season, and they're a bit more hands-on. But during the wintertime, we just do a lot of Skidoos.
Myself is in charge of making sure of any sort of heavy vehicle operations, mainly like some excavators and dozers, operate safely and can do the job to its satisfactory needs. Mainly involves like the snow clearing, moving material around, it could be anything.
Probably the hardest part and the biggest challenge towards the job is just everything's a lot more awkward. Everything takes a lot longer. So whereas I'd pick up a 13mm spanner and I'd fire that on a nut, the nut would be frozen solid with ice. So you have to chip all the ice away before you can even undo a nut, which is something we don't see at home and in hot climates and stuff. And so even just working on a Skidoo outside in -20, say, you need your thick gloves on, you need your hat, you need your buff, you need everything just to keep you warm so you can maintain concentration, because you soon lose concentration when you get cold. And I think maintaining concentration is quite an important thing, because you can so easily make a mistake, and then that mistake could really ruin someone's day if I missed something or was incorrect in one of my decisions due to the cold. The parts thing is quite a challenge. That is one of the most difficult parts of the job. Say for example, I've got Skidoos now with broken parts and we don't have any of the parts for them. So whereas at home, if I have an issue, I'm straight onto the parts department, and then bang, next day it's sitting on my driveway ready to go in the van and go crack on. But down here, if we need something, it's almost a year away. So you have to be so careful in stock usage and stock ordering and keeping stock levels to the absolute top level, because you can quite easily just throw a part on and it might not fix it, but you're too lazy to take it off. And then getting into that attitude, then you become even more lazy and you stop booking parts out, and then we don't get the new parts down to fit to the stuff that's broken. It is probably one of the hardest parts about being down here. Obviously the cold is the hardest challenge, but certainly the parts and replacing parts and being switched on and ordering parts as soon as possible is a very awkward part. But we're pretty good in respect to, we've got some good systems on the computer and we've got some good ways of keeping our stock levels up to date. And I'm always thinking about the next person, so I'm always thinking about the man that's coming in after me. The garage here at Rothera is extremely well kitted out. We've got some good machining equipment. We've got a couple of decent pillar drills. We've got an awesome MIG, TIG and arc welders. We've got gas cutting equipment. We've got a lathe. There isn't much that we can't do down here. With a very open mindset, you can almost do anything. And it's certainly changing the way you look at the job and the way that you process your workload is super important, because if we don't have the part, but it's something quite simple, we're often in the ability to make it. So, for example, I needed a pin made up. Normally you would just buy one and get it sent home, but here we don't have access to pins. I mean, a pin is super simple and quick to make, so we can just whip one up on the lathe in an hour or so. And we've got a good selection of steel, we've got a good amount of equipment to fabricate what we need. So in comparison to a conventional garage or a conventional workshop, we're pretty good. We're well within the middle ground of a mechanics workshop and then an engineering workshop. We're sort of in between both of them, but you still have to be quite resourceful on what you're going to use. So where we would normally need bushings made out of plastic, we'd make them out of nylon just quickly because it's what we have. So we have quite a wide selection of vehicles down here at Rothera. We have a lot of it has to be tracked because of the snow we get. So we've got a D4 bulldozer, which is quite a nice old machine. It's 1994, so it's quite an old girl, but she's very simple. She's got no ECUs, it's all just switches on and off. It's brilliant. And then we've got a Tucker Snowcat, which is a tracked sort of people carrier, as it were, which is a pretty cool piece of kit with a Cummins 6-cylinder diesel engine in it and then an Allison power shift transmission. We don't really use that too much. We don't use that as much as we would be in the summertime because we don't really need to shift too much heavy stuff.
Snowcat's quite a unique one. The Snowcat's main purpose is summertime, when it's pulling massive sledges down from the skiway that we've got off the top of the hill, like sort of getting fuel and supplies up and away from it. It's good at transporting bodies, getting people up the valves and stuff. I kind of like it, probably one of my favourite ones.
And we have a Nodwell 110C crane. And Nodwell's pretty cool because it runs a similar engine, the Cummins 6-cylinder diesel, with a Allison 4-speed power shift in that as well, which is pretty cool. It's very heavy. It's quite unique because it's got a very unusual rubber sort of steel track setup. Very long wheelbase on it, so it floats on top of snow really well. That's got a Palfinger knuckle boom crane mounted to the back of it that we mainly use for recovering and dropping boats in the water. That's its primary use at the moment, but we often use it for uplifting drums, moving stuff around the station. Recently we used it to remove an aerial from an antenna, which is pretty cool. Great use of the tools we've got. We've got a 13-ton JCB digger, 360 excavator, which is a cool bit of kit.
The machine we probably use the most here is the GIS 130 excavator. It's a 13-ton machine. It's quite handy around about all areas around about station.
It's 2011, so not 2013, so it's not very old, but it's not very new in the first place as well. Quite simple, quite basic. We have a couple of telehandlers down here, also JCB, and then we've got some big loading shovels. We've got a big Volvo L180, which is a 18-ton articulated loader, which has got some serious tools for it. We use that mainly in the summertime for shifting stuff around, like containers. Got some big wide forks on it so we can lift containers about station. And we've got a fair few attachments, including a bucket and a couple of other lifting equipment. But mainly its usage in the wintertime will be snow clearing. So we run two over-ass snow blowers. One's an absolute machine which is built in the 80s, which runs a big V8 cat diesel in it, which is an absolute powerhouse. A 300 and something horsepower kicking out of that boy there, which is just running a hydraulic pump, which then runs a load of motors, which controls the auger and the impeller, which the auger takes the snow in, the impeller throws it out the top of the spout. And then we've got a slightly newer one as well, which is sort of 2012. It's quite a lot newer, to be fair. That has a V6 Mercedes engine in it, which is another real big lump with some serious power. We run quite a large fleet. We're probably around about 30 skidoos. We've got 3 models down here. We've got an old-fashioned, well, it's not old-fashioned, it's 1990, around to the 2000s era of Alpine 3 skidoos, which are just absolute workhorses, just 2-stroke, just conventional, very reliable. You can throw them in the back of a plane, drop them out, and then pick them up 2 years later and pull them over and they'll start. And also we've got quite a few of the moderner ones. We've got some Skidoo Scandic V800s, which would be described as the absolute tractor of the Skidoo world. We've
got a V-twin Rotax engine in it, which is just bulletproof engine. You've got some serious torque, and we mainly use them for our winter trips and some light field work. And then we've got some Skidoo Ace 600s and 900s, which are mainly used for field work only. We try and keep them quite low kilometers just to prevent any of the issues occurring in the field. So I think we run as well, we run about 7 or 8 John Deere Gators. We run the 6x4 versions, which are 4-wheel drive, 6 wheels in total. They are an absolute pain in the bum to keep going throughout the summertime because we just have so many punches. Because it's quite a hard, sharp, shaly ground around here, so the tyres don't last 2 minutes. And we do give them a little bit more stick than they probably should be dealing with on quite a frequent basis. So they run a 3-cylinder Iseki diesel in them, but it's a Japanese diesel engine in them that's absolutely bulletproof again. We very rarely mess around with the engines. Quite often they're just quite tired. We've got quite some old ones. I think our oldest one went home this season, and that was from 1997. And then we got a brand new one down this season as well, which is a nice bit of kit to drive as well. But yeah, the Gators are a bit of a pain in my bottom. But apart from that, brilliant handy bits of kit. We use them all the time in the summertime, especially for doing bins and getting stuff from North Station to South Station and just general workload. Where I live in England is a county called Norfolk, and we very rarely get snow. And we don't have to deal with snow clearing or snow blowing or ploughing or anything like that. It's just a flat agricultural area. So when I applied for the job, I didn't really think too much into my role down here. I just saw I can spin spanners pretty well. I'm quite a good mechanic. I'm quite a strong mechanic. So it shouldn't be too much of an issue. And then you get down here and you realise that the mechanics team are quite important when it comes to snow clearing and machine usage. So whereas my skill set is very much repairing and fixing, it's had to adapt quite heavily towards operating, because as it's just myself and Neil, the operator, we're quite low on staff. So whereas Neil would be picking up the slack with all the operating and I'd be picking up the slack with the repair work, we're now having to sort of level playing field it. So he does a lot of the operating and I do a little bit of the operating, and he does a little bit of the spanner work, and then I do a little bit of the spanner work as well. But the prime example I always use is I had to know when was enough snow for us to use skidoos on station. And whereas that might seem quite a simple question, where you would just, oh, there's snow on the station, surely we can use them. But you have to think quite carefully, going back to the question of parts and usage and kilometers and what we're doing if we're wearing the skidoos out prematurely driving on very rubbish snow. So it was quite a shock to the system when I came down here and realised I'd be doing a lot more machine operating. I'd be doing a lot of driving in the summer or in the winter time when it comes to snow clearing. I'll be doing a lot of decision making, which I would never have done anywhere else in the world. And that's one of the things that's very unique to this environment, and it's pretty unbelievable. Like, I'm not much of a machinist, and I've had to adapt to that, and I've had to become quite an accurate machinist just to save on time. So we've got the parts being made as opposed to waiting 6 to 8 months for them to come down on the ship. So it's definitely a changer for me. And I think if anyone was to be coming down as just a mechanic, you come as a mechanic and you leave as probably as loose as term as you can, an Antarctic engineer.